Okay, I'm live. I hope y'all can find me real quick. I do apologize. I was having some technical difficulties. The mic wasn't on, it wasn't working properly. So I hope y'all can find me over here real quick. But we're about 6 minutes past our starting date. But anyway, I want to jump into this. This is a good little lesson today. Give people a few minutes, actually, to make sure they can find me recording again. This is a very this is this is a good lesson that I've been working with. As I mentioned previously, but like I said, the mic wasn't working. I had to get that fixed so y'all can hear me tonight. Um, this this lesson tonight, the origin of myth, part 9. We've been going about 9 weeks with this. I think we skipped 1 week and then we came back and completed with part 2, so picked up back with it. But this is subtitled "The Rise of the Olympians," part 2. Now, for those of you who don't know who the Olympians are, these were the 12, 13 primary gods that was worshipped in the ancient world of Greece and Rome. And it's important, I think, because Matthew 24 talks about how in the last days before Christ returns, it's going to be like it was in the days of Noah and the days of Lot. And I believe these gods have a direct tie-in to the fallen angels, the Watchers. I think that I think that they have a great tie into this. At least some of them do, and that's why I want to take this time to continue the lesson from last week on who the Olympians were. And of course, the Olympians, that was Zeus, and you had Hera, you had Hades, you had Artemis, Apollo, Hermes, Athena, you had Poseidon. All these guys, every one of them, okay, every one of them were part of the Olympians that were the ruling gods in antiquity. Now, check this out. Just to give you a little bit of a background, a little bit of a foundation here, the Olympians were the children and grandchildren of what is known as the Titans, or the elder gods. Kronos was the father of the Olympians. And if you go back and watch some of the previous videos, I'm not going to go into a big rundown of it again. I've already done this in several videos. Kronos is the Greek equivalent of Lucifer. And so these people who I believe that they were basically immortals, I believe that by calling them sons of Kronos or sons of the devil, I don't think they were wicked people, but they were identifying with their fallen nature in the mythologies and so forth. I find this very interesting. Now, when I wrote my first book, some of you may know or may not know, I don't know, that I've written a few books. The first book I wrote was called As It Was in the Days of Noah and the Days of Lot. How I established that, this is how I set this up. I wanted to do a study on the ancient gods, and I felt that there was a strong biblical tie to these entities, and I wanted to break this down and kind of go as deep as I could with it. And that's what the book got it started. I almost called it Promiscuous Messengers because I was going to have these as children, if you will, of the fallen angels and mortal women. I've tweaked my theory on that a little bit over the years. But basically it dealt with how these Olympian gods, that I just kind of listed a few of them for you, these Olympian gods, and what they did, they have a counterpart with demonic and evil spirits out there. Okay, so that's what I want us to kind of look at tonight, the relationship to that. Now you may say, well, okay, how's this mythology tying in again? Well, Matthew 24, verse 36-39 tells us that when Christ returns again at his second coming, it's going to be just like it was in the days of Noah. If you go to Luke chapter 17, you'll find out that he ties in also to the days of Lot. So it's very important that we understand that these things, these mythologies, they are a shadow of what the Bible has already talked about, what is dictated, and what is basically the foundation that this stuff, these are true stories. You know, Paul talked about how the Greeks and the city of Athens, which was named after Athena, at Mars Hill, named after the god Mars, or Ares in the Greek language. So it was full of idolatry. And he says that, you know, you have this unknown God, to him I want to declare to you. And of course, John, the Gospel of John declares who this unknown God was. It was none other than Logos in the Greek, and Logos was the name of the God before everything was. He was, and of course that would be Jesus Christ. So this is going to be pretty interesting as we look at this. If you like angels, fallen angels, if you're into the Nephilim, if you're into demonology, If you're into some basic Bible prophecy, the return of the ancient spirits, as some people have done teachings on that, then you're really going to enjoy what we're doing here tonight. Okay, now let's go ahead. Now that we've done a test with this, now that we got the microphone and everything working good, let's go ahead and jump into this and take a look at this. Now, I'm going to be kind of going over this list several times, but that's just for the ease of breaking it down for you so you can really grasp what I'm saying and where we're going with this. Now, the Olympians, they had, the Greeks had 13 major gods and goddesses, but there was only 12 seats on the Olympian pantheon, if you will, that sat there. And I want to share these with you. Here's the gods and goddesses. You had Zeus, Hera, Hades, Demeter, Ares, Aphrodite, Dionysus, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Hermes, Poseidon, and Hestia. Okay? Now, Hestia was the goddess of the home and the domesticated life. She was the main goddess, but she was not actually one of the primary Olympians. Hey, Sharon, thank you for finding me again. I'm sorry I had to reset everything, but my mic wasn't working. And I'm glad that Vicky made a comment about that. That way, I'd hate to go through the entire show and have no volume going on here. Thank you so much. And it's good to see you again, Sharon. Good to have you here. Now, let's take these gods and break them down a little bit. What were they the god of? What were they known for? What was their forte to religion, if you will? What were they doing? Zeus, he had a special title because after the Great War, I believe it's called the Titanomachy. That's a big fancy word. It means the war against the Titans. You had Zeus, you had Hades, and you had Poseidon. These three main brothers. And what they did, they went to war with the Titans, including their father Kronos. And what they do, they defeated him and cast him down. And all of their half brothers and half siblings, the Titans, the great horde, the cross between gods and mortal women. We talked about that several weeks. They were cast down where they were the angels. These Titans, they were cast down into a place in Greek known as Tartarus. Okay, Tartarus. And of course that shows up in 2 Peter chapter 3, excuse me. And it says that they were cast down into hell. The Greek word there, hell, is Tartarus. It's where and so this is another indication that the Greek myths were kind of tapping into something that Scripture has known and taught for thousands of years. Okay, very important that we understand this. It's not that the myths are right and the Bible is watered down. No, that's not what it is. The Bible is confirming these mythologies. The mythologies aren't confirming the Bible. Now, look at this. Now, Zeus was the god above all gods. He was above the mortals. He ruled over God and mortal. Gods couldn't even get anything past him. If Zeus said it, then it was law, and even the gods had to obey it. That's how much power he had. Now, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Zeus being a god above all gods and all mortals and everybody, that is a parallel. Now get this with this. Hey, Vicky, it's good to have you here. Thanks for tuning in. Zeus being the god of mortals and gods alike, he was above all gods. He was above everyone that was called a god. Well, you know where we're going now. This is a great tie-in to the spirit of Antichrist, and I believe Zeus was a real man. In Rome, he was called Jupiter, and I believe that when he died, there was an evil spirit that attached itself to the memory or to the legacy of Zeus, and it was the spirit of Antichrist. Now, the phrase Antichrist shows up in the writings of John, 1 John 4:3. It talks about, let's take a look at that real quick. 1 John 4:3. 1 John 4:3. I want to read that to you. 1 John 4:3. Okay, and this is dealing with trying the spirits. It says, and every spirit that confesses not that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not a God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist. Wherefore ye have heard that it should come, and even now already is at work in the world. Now think about that for a minute. Hey, Pastor Mike, good to have you here. So this is the spirit of Antichrist that's associated with the man Zeus, who is over what? God and man alike. Well, Michael, how does that really tie in? Just because he ruled over everybody. Well, let me tell you something. If you go to 2 Thessalonians, you're going to find a verse about the coming Antichrist that you may not know or you may not be commonly referred to. And I want to share that prophecy with you right now. I want to share that with you. And this comes from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And look at what it tells us. It tells us in chapter 2 of Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, I'm going to read verse 3 and 4. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away or a great apostasy, is what the Greek says. First, it's going to happen. And then that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, verse 4, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Look at what the spirit of Antichrist does. It sets itself above all gods, all people, everything, and dictates and lords over it and tries to be, guess what? A substitute of Jesus Christ. And that's not going to work. I bet y'all didn't know that about Zeus, did you? There's a parallel between the god Zeus of the Greeks, and a demonic spirit in the world today. Let's take a look at another one. Let's look at his wife, Hera. Now, Hera was a very interesting relationship. She conned Zeus into marrying him. I forgot the details of this, but Hera loved Zeus, but Zeus was a very harsh lover. He was always cheating on Hera. He was stepping out on her. He had countless wives, consorts, and women that he was galley-locking around with. And I found it very interesting because Hera spent most of her time on this earth very jealous and angry with Zeus, or more so his lovers, because her husband Zeus is the god of gods. You can't do anything to him. So she would often take her anger on Zeus and she would take it out on his children, such as Hercules, or she would curse the woman he got with, all kinds of crazy stuff like that. Now look at this. Let's go to Numbers 5 real quick. Numbers 5, and let's look at the next spirit that parallels with the Olympian pantheon. Numbers chapter 5. Numbers chapter 5, verse 14. Now look at what we got here. Numbers 5, verse 14. Now this passage of scripture deals with a husband who suspects his wife has been cheating on him. Boy, did you hear that? This is exactly what Hera was doing. When she suspected Zeus was cheating on her, she lost her mind and she went on a rampage to take out the other party, not Zeus, her husband, but the other woman. Now look at what it says, verse 14. And the spirit, I'll tell you what, I'm going to back up here and read. I'm going to read a few of these verses, okay? Chapter 5 of Numbers, verse 11 says, And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, and say to them, If any man's wife go aside and commit a trespass against him, and a man lieth with her carnally, and it be hid from the eyes of her husband, and be kept closed, and she is defiled, and there be no witness against her, neither she be taken with the manner. Verse 14. And the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be defiled. Or if the spirit of jealousy came upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be not defiled, then the man shall bring his wife unto the priest, and they shall bring her offering for her, the 10th part of the ephah of barley meal, and shall pour no oil upon it, nor put frankincense thereon, for it is an offering of jealousy, and an offering of the immortal, bringing iniquity to remembrance. And the priest shall bring her near and set her before the Lord. And the priest shall take holy water and earthen vessel, and of dust, the dust that is on the floor of the tabernacle, and the priest shall take it and put it in the water, and the priest shall set the woman before the Lord, and uncover the woman's head, and put the offering of the memorial in her hands, which is the jealousy offering, and the priest shall have in his hand a bitter water that causeth the curse. Now, I'm going to stop reading right there, but notice that there's a provision in the law on what a husband can do, or what a man can do if he's jealous over his wife, but not just being jealous, if he suspects she's been unfaithful to him. So we have this spirit of jealousy that's mentioned in the Bible, and we have this goddess, Hera, who spent her time being really jealous all the time of her husband. I find that to be very, very interesting that we have this. Now let's take a look at our third spirit. Our third spirit. And don't worry, I'm showing you some mythology and Christian doctrine, but we're going to get into what it really means here in a few minutes, okay? Let's take a look at Hades. Now, Hades, now we're familiar with that. If you study the Bible for any length of time, then you'll know that in many places in the New Testament, where it talks about hell or dying, where you go, the Greek word is Hades there. So Hades, in Greek literature and Greek thought, was not just a individual god, but it was also the name of a location underneath the earth. By the way, guess where hell is? If you study out the text, Korah's rebellion and so forth against Moses, you'll find out hell is down. It's down into the earth. The Bible says that Christ had to descend where he could ascend. Think about that for a minute, people. Think about that. So we know hell's beneath us. And so hell and Tartarus are chambers, according to Greek myth, underneath the earth. And Hades is also the name of the man who rules in Hades. Okay, so let's follow that. Hades was associated with the underworld and the dead. Hades was always talking to the dead. Oh, you know where we're going now, don't you? What spirit deals with the talking to the dead? That is a familiar spirit. Let's go over to Leviticus 19 real quick. Let me share with you this spirit, Leviticus 19. And by the way, I'm going to tell you something. If you get bored and you just want to look up some great laws and some things in the Word of God and go to the Torah, look up, did I say Leviticus? Yes, I did. I'm over in numbers, excuse me. Go check out Leviticus sometimes. Leviticus has got some really great laws. I mean, it may make you scratch your head every now and then, but put Christ in the center of it and just see the Lord and watch how he works. Leviticus 19, verse 31 says this. Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. Now, a familiar spirit is what? What exactly is a familiar spirit? A familiar spirit is simply that. It's just what it says. It's a spirit that's familiar with people, places, and things. For example, let's say if you have a loved one that dies, and you get on one of them crazy cop shows where they bring a psychic in and to tell you where the body is or something, if you suspect a person's been murdered. I heard a minister say many years ago, and I would agree with this, that how do you know the spirit that's talking through the medium, the familiar spirit that's talking to the wizard, how do you know when they tell you where the body is, how do you know that's not the same spirit that moved on the murderer to cause him to kill that person? So familiar spirits are really nasty. I've had people say, well, these soothsayers, they're telling the truth. I mean, what she said came true. That's exactly why you want to go away from it. That's exactly why you want to stay away from this stuff, people. You'll want to stay away from it because there is a certain validity to it. You got to understand something. The devil's not going to make up lies about your future and stuff. There's going to be a certain amount of it that's going to come true. Why? Because if these psychics always got it wrong, nobody would keep coming back to them. Okay? I'm going to tell you something right here. Jesus will never get it wrong. He's spot on every time. These soothsayers will be hit or miss. And that's how you can tell what kind of church you're in. If you have someone in your church that stands up and says, I got a word from the Lord, let me prophesy, and it doesn't come to pass, just tell that person they need to be glad that Moses is not the pastor. And that's all I'm going to say right there. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's a hot topic right there. But you do not go around slinging your garbage around and then trying to tie it to the name of God. By the way, I will say this. If you go into Exodus chapter 20, I think it's around 7 and 8, and also if you look at, go into the book of Proverbs chapter 30, you'll find out Solomon talks about taking the name of the Lord in vain. It's got nothing to do with cussing. It's got everything to do with the stewardship of the name of God and who are you representing. Are you taking God's name to represent him, or are you taking God's name to represent you? Very big question to ask there, and keep yourself in line. Hey, Brother Billy, it's good to have you here, brother. Good to have you here tonight. Now, let me find my place again. We are about 1/4 of the way through the gods right now. Now, look at this. 1/4 of the way. We are now going to go to Demeter. Demeter had a daughter in Greek mythology. And like I said, I'm using that term mythology very loose because I believe these were real people that lived. So Demeter, she had a daughter named Persephone, and she was kidnapped and raped by Hades, who was her uncle, and her other uncle Zeus helped with that. And Persephone was abducted by Hades with the help of Zeus, and she spent 3 years, I believe it was 3 years, or no, excuse me, 3 seasons in hell before she was allowed to come back out again. Now look at this. You have fall, you have winter, and you have I forgot what the other one was. I mean, I think it was like summer. She was gone. She was gone in summer. She was gone in fall, and she's gone in winter. But when spring began to break, guess what? She could come back up and visit her mother for a season. Now, until she was found, until it was realized what happened, you realize that Demeter, she went around with great mourning, great sadness, great lamentation that was going on through her. Now, think about this for a minute. Now, if this is the case, then what evil spirit will be attached to Demeter? Well, that, my friend, is over in Isaiah chapter 61, verse 3. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Isaiah 61, verse 3. Isaiah 61, 3. Went too far. Isaiah 61, verse 3. I'm going to read verse 2. Let's go back and read verse 1. Let's go ahead and get 1, 2, and 3 in here. I think we need this. It says, the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings to the meek, and hath sent me to bind the brokenhearted, and proclaim liberty to the captives, and to open and the opening of the prison to let them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort and all that mourn. Now here's where we get into that actual spirit, verse 3. To anoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes, oil of joy for mourning, the garments of praise for the spirit of heaviness, the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, and the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. So now we know there's a spirit of heaviness. Now I want to stop for a minute, and I want to share this. I brought it out last week a little bit, but I think we need a review of this right now. We often think that spirits or demons, we associate that with a ghost, and that can be as something simple as the wind. But you got to understand something. These evil spirits, they are living, breathing, sentient beings. Now, if I say sentient, what do I mean by that? It means they're able to reason, they're able to think, they have emotions, they can interact with you. Think about that. We won't come to the spirit of infirmity here in a minute, or a spirit of disease, affliction. You mean that there's a spirit, a demon, a god, if you will, of affliction? It thinks, it reasons, it can function emotionally. Those are the creatures that are out there. And I'm going to tell you something. Yes, they are. These are the entities that's out there. That's why Jesus said some evil spirits, they don't come out by just kind of, just a little puff and just come out, demon. It comes out by how? Prayer and fasting. Sometimes you got to put your time in to get ready to go against these demons. And I think sometimes people miss that point. These demons are very real people and entities. Now, look at this. We're going to look at Aries. Aries is a very good, very, very good one here. Look at this. Aries, he was the god of war and a great bloodshed, okay? And terror would just fill everything when he was around. Now, think about this. I'm not sure if it was Aries or Hades. I think it was Aries. He had 2 sons, and you know what their names was? I'm going to spare you the Greek name, but the English translation is Fear and Panic. These are his 2 sons. Think about that. Fear and Panic. They were Aries' 2 sons. Now, how does that tie into it? The Bible tells us in 2 Timothy 1:7 what? That he has not given us the spirit of fear. Let me tell you something. Fear can be a great crippling thing that can come upon you. Great fear. If you've ever had night terrors or something like that, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is a fear that you freeze in terror. You can't move. You can't speak. You can't do anything. And God says he has not given us the spirit of fear. Woo! He has not given us, but that of a sound mind. Think about that. That's a good hope that we have in him. Now let's go to Aphrodite. Those of you who are fans of Revelation chapter 17, you're going to love this one. Aphrodite. Now, Aphrodite was the goddess of love. Some could say worldly love. She had power over mortals and gods alike. There's another god. That's a goddess that could have power over the gods and over mortals. So Zeus was the spirit of Antichrist, and he could control and manipulate everybody. What did Aphrodite do? She could cast magic spells. She was great at seduction. Her temples had the priestesses in her temples were over glorified prostitutes. And in some cultures, it was an honor to have your wife, your mother, your sister, your daughter to serve in these temples at least once. And many of the women would stay on at Corinth. They had a great temple there. It was world renowned. And the women would stay there full time and be a full-time prostitute. Can you imagine that? A culture that is so devious, so malicious, and so carnal that they would actually encourage their wives, their sisters, their daughters to become prostitutes because that is a reputable position for women to have in a culture. That's insane. That's insane. Let's take a look at this, okay? Let's take a look at 1 Timothy 4:1. I want to take you to 1 Timothy 4:1. The first message I ever preached at Emmanuel Baptist came right out of 1 Timothy 4:1. Listen to this. 1 Timothy 4:1. Look at what it says. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times. Hold up. When's this going to happen? In the latter times. When's this going to happen? In the last days. When's this going to happen? In the end of time. What did Jesus say? As it was in the days of Noah and Lot, when these gods were thriving, as it was in their time, what's going to happen? So shall it be at the return of at the days when Christ returns. Think about that. We're living those days now. Then he says that some shall depart from the faith, doing what? Giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. I'm going to tell you something, people. See, a seducing spirit is not just a sexual thing. It's trying to get you into infidelity with your spouse. A seducing spirit could get you into infidelity against God. I'm going to say that one more time. A seducing spirit could get you to be unfaithful to God and his word. Boy, I tell you, we need more people to preach like that and just get there in church and tell it like it is. There's a lot of churches out there who have these seducing spirits, and actually they have doctrines of devils, and they're using these seducing spirits to be led by them to seduce you, to make merchandise out of you, as Peter says in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1 to 5 and 1 to 6. Think about that, people. This is some crazy stuff. And Jesus said in the last days, it will happen again. Let me ask you something, people. Do we have these spirits operating in America? America was founded on these, we were established, and we were inspired by these cultures of the Greeks and the Romans. Could it be that by doing so, by replicating the architecture and the education and the government, could we also have inherited these ancient spirits that are coming back? Let's go ahead and take a look at some more of this stuff. Let's take a look. We got Dionysus now. Dionysus was the god of excess and revelry. You know, he had his half brother Apollo that had the motto, know thyself. In other words, be careful, slow down, know your limits, know your limits. Yeah, that's right, Brother Billy. That's right, brother. Anything against God. That's right. You got it, buddy. Right on there. You know, Apollo had that saying, know thyself, know your limitations. Don't get in over your head. What was Dionysus's motto? Dionysus's motto was simply this: in excess. Do everything in excess. In other words, it wasn't just like get you something to drink. It was like stay there until you're drunk and you can't even walk. Okay, stay there until you're so high you can't even walk. That's what Dionysus was. And by the way, Dionysus and Aphrodite would often interact with each other, and their followers would have these great parties, these great festivals of Dionysia and Aphrodite, Aphrodisia, excuse me. And what they do, it was drunken bliss, drunken sexual bliss, orgies and everything. And that's what the god and goddess would do at this time. Do we have that going on? Do we have a spirit of bondage in the world? Let's go to Romans chapter 8, verse 15. Romans 8:15. Romans 8:15. Let's take a look at that real quick. Romans 8, verse 15, it says this: for ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but ye have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. Think about that. There's actually a spirit of bondage. What? Yes, I said that spirit of bondage. That's what the Bible says in 2 Timothy. Excuse me, in Romans 8:15. That's exactly what it teaches. And we have these spirits that are trying to interact and manipulate and seduce you and take you away from God and bring you to a place where you will give heed to these seducing spirits and doctrines of devils and destroy your eternal soul. Now let's go ahead. Well, I don't mean erase you from existence. I just mean to pull you away from God and bring you into a place of hell and lake of fire and torment forever. Now look at this. Now we come to Athena. Athena was the goddess of wisdom. The goddess of wisdom. Now, if she's a goddess of wisdom, Michael, then how does that tie in to false religion? How does that tie in? Well, let me read to you this verse. It's 1 John 4, verse 6. It says, "We are of God. He that knoweth God heareth us. He that is not of God heareth not us. Hereby know we the spirit of truth and the spirit of error." See, if you have a false goddess, okay, and she is a goddess of wisdom, then in Christian circles, that would be spirit of error, because the demonic spirit will never give you a true word of wisdom. They will give you a word of error instead. Boy, I tell you, I'm enjoying this. I don't know about y'all. This is some good stuff here, people. Now let's take a look at Apollo. Apollo was the god of prophecy and the god of wisdom. He was also the god of music and arts. So look at this. What did he do? He was associated, a god of prophecy. If you go to Acts 16:16, you'll see there's another spirit in that chapter. Acts 16:16. Let's take a look at it. Acts 16:16. And I know some of you are already way ahead of me. We're going to be talking about that spirit of divination tonight. The spirit of divination. Look at this. Acts 16:16. This is a whole story. I'm going to try to condense as much as I can. It says, "And it came to pass, as we went to pray, a certain damsel possessed with the spirit of divination met us, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying." Now let me let's address this real quick, people. The spirit of divination. This is a false prophecy. This is a false word of wisdom. This is a false word of knowledge. And this is exactly what Apollo would have found himself tied into, and the demon that would have went on to go long after Apollo had passed away. Now, let me ask you this. What is the word for divination? You know me, I love to go back to the original Hebrew and Greek words. In Greek, in the actual Greek, what's the word for divination? You want me to tell you? Python. Isn't Python a large, powerful snake? What is Lucifer? He's a large, powerful snake. In Revelation 12, he's a seven-headed dragon. In Genesis 3, he's a serpent on a tree that got cursed to have to crawl around on his belly. Serpent, 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 giving a false word of the gods. Ooh, boy, I tell you, this is exactly what we see, what we're happening here. And this is amazing, because we're seeing it. By the way, do you know how Apollo was able to take over the Oracle of Delphi? We got a few animals here, people. Delphi is the Greek word for dolphin, and that animal was sacred to Apollo, the Oracle of Delphi, the Oracle of the dolphin. But there was a priestess there before Apollo conquered it, and she would speak on behalf of this great serpent that was there. She was attached to a serpent in her false prophecy and her false teachings and her false religion. That sounds just like Lucifer, people. This is all showed up in the Greek mythologies, and it is substantiated in the Word of God. This stuff was actually going on. And what did Apollo do? He fought, he overcame, conquered, and killed the python and threw it down to a shaft in the earth. And that's how he got control of the Oracle at Delphi. Think about that, people. All through this, we see carnality, we see corruption, we see evil, we see perversion, all of this in every single one of these deities. Let's move along here, because I think you're going to find some really good stuff here. Artemis. Now, Artemis was the goddess of the wild. Now, Isaiah 19:14 tells us about the perverse spirit living out there, going out there. So we have a perverse spirit that's attached to Artemis, the goddess of the wild, where everything's wild and crazy out there in the woods and so forth. Now, here's one I like. Hermes. Hermes was the herald of the gods. Now, what does that mean? He was the spokesperson for the gods. You know, Paul and Barnabas, they went around and people thought they were Jupiter and Mercurius. That's the Roman name. The Greek name was Zeus and Poseidon, Zeus and Mercury. And since Mercury would have been the one, since Hermes would have been the one that gave the word of the gods. It's believed that it was Paul that they thought was Mercury and Hermes. Why? Because Paul was the preacher of the two. Paul brought a message from on high. Paul brought a message of the gods, the one true God, and they would get corrupted later in time. I think all this is in there, people. Now look at this. Here's one for you. Here's one for you. Hephaestus. He's the only god associated with being feeble and weak and sickly. He's the only one that's associated with infirmity. Why? Because he was the illegitimate son of Zeus. And what do you think Hera did? Hera got mad, picked up Hephaestus as a child, and threw him off a cliff. That's some crazy stuff, but that's what she did. He survived, but he was crippled for the rest of his life. And I really believe this ties up with a spirit of infirmity that you can read about in Luke chapter 13. Think about that for a minute. Think about that. Now, let me ask you this. Let's go ahead and take our last one here, Poseidon, before we take a turn here. He was the god of the sea, earthquakes, and horses. I'm going to read, if you will, go to Mark chapter 9, okay? Mark chapter 9, and we're going to look at the spirit here. Mark chapter 9. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and 9. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Luke 9. All right, let's see what the verse is real quick. We're going to look for 17. Look at what 17 says. Mark chapter 9, I'm going to start at verse 14. Look at what it says. And when he came to his disciples, he saw a great multitude about them, and the scribes were questioning with them. And straightway all the people, when they beheld him, were greatly amazed, and running to him, saluted him. Verse 16. And he asked the scribes, what question ye with them? Verse 17. And one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which have a dumb spirit, or the deaf and dumb spirit. Look what happens. Verse 18. And wheresoever he taketh him, he teareth him, and he foameth, and he gnasheth with his teeth, and he pined away. And I spake to the disciples, and they should cast him out, and they could not. Verse 19. And he answered him, this is Jesus answering, saying, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with thee? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. And they brought him unto him. And when he saw him, straightway the spirit tore him, and he fell on the ground, and he wallowed foam. And he asked his father, how long is it ago since this came unto him? He said, of a child. And oftentimes he had cast him into the fire and into the waters, and to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us, help us. And Jesus said to him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help thou my unbelief. When Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the foul spirit, saying to him, thou dumb and deaf spirit, I charge thee, come out of him, enter no more to him. And the spirit cried and rent him sore, and came out of him, and he was one as dead, insomuch that many said, he is dead. And Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he rose. And when he came into the house, his disciples asked him privately, saying, why couldn't we cast him out? And he said unto them, this kind come forth by nothing but by prayer and fasting. Think about this. This was a deaf and dumb spirit. Now, Michael, how do you get deaf and dumb out of the God associated with earthquakes and horses? Don't forget the sea. Now, I know some people think this is a stretch, but Poseidon lived in the ocean. Have you ever been in the water? You can't breathe. You can't talk. You can't hear. You can't do anything. And I really believe this is a spirit that would have attached itself to Poseidon. You would have had to have special magical powers to be able to do all that in the water. And by the way, look at what it said. Look, we just read it. It said what it said right here. It said, see if I can find that again. So several times he tried to kill him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed his feet, and they cast the fire, and he was also cast into the waters to destroy him. Think about that. This spirit was associated with the god of the sea, and he kept trying to throw this kid into the sea to drown him. Very parallel here. This is amazing. Now, before I get any further, because this next half an hour or so, You're really going to hear this because I'm about to bring it home. I'm about to really bring it home. Here in America, we base so much of our culture on the Greeks and the Romans who had these gods. Could it be that when we took on these gods, or when we took on this culture, could it be that we have brought a spirit of antichrist onto ourselves? Spirits of jealousy, people always wanting this and that, trying to keep up with the Joneses. The familiar spirit. How many times you ride down the road and you see a sign or an ad on TV for a soothsayer? Spirit of heaviness. There's people out there with Great Depression. Elijah had Great Depression, when he dealt with Jezebel, and we're going to talk about her here in a few minutes. Spirits of whoredom. What about seducing spirits in the church? Does the church having to face seducing spirits nowadays? What about spirits of whoredoms? They got stuff in churches now that don't have anything to do with God going on. We have sold out our love for Christ, and we've turned that God's holy house into a brothel is what we've done. What about is there a spirit of error being preached from pulpits? Is there? I think there is. Well, what about lying spirits? Some preachers just come right out and lie to you. Matter of fact, I want to take a look at a verse. We referenced it earlier, but I want to share some scriptures with you. I want to let you take a look at a few scriptures here. Let's go to 2 Peter real quick. 2 Peter. Whoops, too far. 2 Peter. We're going to read some of this a little bit. Just bear with me. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1. But there are false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who proudly shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that bought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. Verse 3, and through covetousness, that's another word for jealousy, they with feigned or made up or fabricated words, they make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time leaneth not, and their dominion slumbereth not. Let's go to Acts real quick. Acts. Where's Acts real quick? Let's go to Acts. Acts chapter 20. Acts 20. I'm going to read verse 9. And this is Paul's words there. Acts 20, 29. For I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter into among you, not sparing the flock. Verse 30. Also of your own selves shall men arise, speaking perverse. There's that perverse spirit again. Speaking perverse things to draw away disciples after them. Jesus warns them about the sheep, the wolves in sheep's clothing in Matthew chapter 7. All this is happening in the last days, and it's infiltrating the church. Think about this, people. We are in a bad situation spiritually with the American church. We have given away, we have walked away from our true love. We've gotten away from everything, and we have turned to these fables, these lies, these mythologies, if you will, of what doctrine is. We got people out there that don't even believe the rapture is going to happen. I don't care. Call it the resurrection if you want to. It doesn't matter. But you got to believe in it, and you got to be looking for it, and you got to be loving his appearing to get in on this. If you don't love his appearing, if you're not waiting for his appearing, if you're not looking for his appearing, you're not going to find it. That's all there is to it. So if there's some people out there, they want to get excited and go through the tribulation. Hey, that's your choice if you want to. Me, I'm going to heaven when that trumpet sounds. That's how I look at it, people. Now, I want us to briefly take a minute. We got a few minutes here. I'm going to touch bases on some of this. I've shared a lot in months and years past on the spirit of Jezebel, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. But I want to show you how the spirit of Jezebel is going to infiltrate the church in the last days. How do I know? How do I know? Well, let's go to Revelation chapter 2. Revelation chapter 2. Looks like I left off some notes here, but that's okay. I know we're going to Revelation chapter 2. I can find it. That's not going to be a problem. I just happened to notice that my notes were incomplete. That happens, but that's okay. We got a good study going here, don't we? Revelation chapter 2. Look at this. Revelation chapter 2. Revelation 2. This is the church of Thyatira. And look at what it says. Unto the angel of the church of Thyatira write these things, saith the Son of God, who hath in his eyes unto the flame, who his eyes like unto the flame of fire, and his feet are like the fine brass. I know thy works and charity and service and faith and thy patience and thy works, and the last to be more than its first. They had greater works than they had charity or love. Think about that for a minute. Good to have you here, Vicky. Thanks for tuning in. Verse 20. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and seduce my servants, and to commit fornication, and to eat things sacrificed to idols. I'm going to pause right there. That's enough to get into right okay. Notice this. Jezebel, she claimed to be a prophetess. No one told her. I mean, she wasn't anointed of God. She said, look here, I am a prophetess. You know what that sounds like? That sounds just like Korah, doesn't it? Just like Korah. Didn't Korah do just that thing? He associated himself, didn't he? He associated himself. He said, Moses, you take too much upon yourself. Think about that. You have taken too much upon yourself. I'm trying to find that verse. I'll tell you, I'm going to take a gamble with this. Let's go to Numbers real quick. I hope I can find this, because I think it needs to be said right now. We'll see if it's if God wants it said or not. Numbers chapter 21. I want to talk about Korah's rebellion. Korah's rebellion. What Korah did, he actually made the comment. It's 16, not 21. It's verse 16. Look at this. Verse 16. Numbers 16, starting at verse 1. And Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, and the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took men, and they rose up before Moses, and with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of assembly, famous in the congregation, men of renown, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said to them, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift up your eyes above the congregation of the Lord. Let's analyze that real quick. What happened? Korah comes to Moses and says, you know what, you're doing too much. What makes you think that you're the only one that can hear from God? God's with all of us. Korah was a self-appointed prophet. And we know that story didn't end good with it, because Korah died that day. God killed him, put him to death, and all the people that sided with him. See, I really believe that what we're looking at, we're going to be living a day where people are going to rise up in church, false teachers, false prophets, and they're going to proclaim, I got a word for God. Let me tell you something. If God ain't talking to you, you ain't talking for him. That's all there is to it. And it really bothers me. I'm going to be honest with you. Anytime I hear someone say, the Lord shared this with me, it bothers me, not because I don't believe that God can hear from, it bothers me not because I don't believe people can hear from God. I think we can. I think God talks to us. But I've been in some churches where they were so bold. Every time they came to church, the Lord spoke to me. The Lord spoke to me. The Lord spoke to me. I'm thinking, God's talking more to you than he ever did the prophets of the Old Testament. And that's the sad thing. Some people get that. It takes a long time to master and be able to hone in on the voice of God and listen to it and hear it. I'm learning how to do that myself, and it's a daily thing. You have to understand something. You can't just go against the authority that God has set up. Paul talked about in the book of Romans, that the powers that be are there for a reason. And if you resist the powers, you can resist God. And you have to understand, this is exactly what we have here. And Jezebel, now you can read her story in 1 Kings 16 to 21, I believe it is. And you'll find out that what she did, she persecuted the real prophets. She was a worshiper of Baal. She required child sacrifices. If I understand this, her name means unmarried or not attached. So here she is. She is married, but she's acting like she's not. We got a bunch of Jezebels in our churches today, don't we? And I think it's going to get really rough for the church in the long run. I love this. 1 Kings 21, verse 25, talks about how we're not going to talk about it. We won't read it. 1 Kings 21, verse 25. And look at this. But there was none like unto Ahab, which did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, whom Jezebel, his wife, stirred up. Even the devil can appear as an angel of light. That's right, Brother Billy. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. You know, notice what Jezebel did. She stirred up trouble. Well, and she stirred it up in her husband. You know, guys, ain't that the kind of wife you really want? Someone who's going to stir you up to be mad at God. Isn't that what Job's wife did? She said, why don't you just curse God and die? Well, that's a great woman to have in your corner, isn't it? Curse God and die. And Jezebel was no different. She would stir her husband up to go against God and to rebel against God and to do more wicked than many of the other kings did. And one thing I find very interesting here is Ahab wasn't innocent. He was very weak-willed, he was spineless, and he was always getting depressed when he didn't get his way on us. And I want to tell you something now. I think the number one cause that we have Jezebels in the church today is because we got a bunch of Ahabs running the church, and that allows for Jezebels to come in, kick them around, and take control of the church. And that's what happens. And we got to be very careful. Men, we got to stand bold. I'm not saying push women down. That's not what we do. We believe in men taking charge and leading the family, and we believe in women their place and to look after the home, to look after the children, and the men helps that. We are, the family unit comes together, and we have a breakdown of the family, not so much in the world, but in the church. Can you believe it? In the church, we got people breaking down. The family values are breaking down the church. Unbelievable, people. Absolutely unbelievable. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you tonight. I wanted to share with you how the chief gods of antiquity, as they begin to rise to power, they were attached in many ways to these evil spirits. And it's going to happen again in the last days, as we looked at several passages of scripture did this. And what's going to be spearheading this is two evil spirits. The spirit of Ahab being spineless, not trying to take a stand, not trying to push forward with what God says, but he's trying to let the wind, he's backing down and letting the spirit of Jezebel take over and move forward. And this is exactly what we need to be very careful about, people. The spirit of Ahab and the spirit of Jezebel. What spirit is driving your church? Do you have the spirit of Elijah? Do you have the spirit, the Holy Spirit? Do you have a spirit of Cain? Do you have a spirit of Korah? Do you have a Jezebel spirit? What's going on there? What's going on? Most of all, you need the spirit of God that's going to go there, because if you got the spirit of God in there, you will have a spirit of Elijah. And there will be dark times that's going to come. I promise you that. But guess what? You're going to hold that. You're going to be able to hold that position for Jezebel. And by the way, do you know how Jezebel met her fate? She was cast off the balcony, and dogs ate her remains. Think about that for a minute. And you know who turned on her? The eunuchs that was supposed to be protecting her. She surrounded herself by men that couldn't do anything, that they were unfruitful. They couldn't bear any fruit. And guess what? They turned on her in the long run. And I think that that's ultimately what's going to happen to any and every Jezebel, is that the people that she surrounds herself are going to betray her one day. And we have to be very careful. Make sure our daughters and our females in the families, make sure they don't grow up to have that strong Jezebel spirit in them. But anyway, I don't want to start babbling and rambling on. I want you to know something. I really, really enjoyed this lesson tonight. I think it was very good. I don't have my notes to see what next week we'll be talking about, but we are going to be continuing. We're going to be talking about the terrestrial gods, the gods that were really men, great mortals that were deified later. We're going to be looking at that in the upcoming weeks. We're also going to be looking at the great hybrid creatures, the monsters that we talked about there. You know, people all the time ask me, what's my opinion on the dog man, which is the American werewolf, or Bigfoot? What's my take on that? And in these upcoming weeks, we'll be able to break this down and go through it and cover it. It's going to be a really good time. But just remember, we're supposed to stand guard and keep watch. And we're not supposed to just stand guard and keep watch to make sure no one gets the last donut in the fellowship hall. We're supposed to stand guard and make sure the serpent stays out of our churches and stays out of our homes. It's up to the men to do it. God commissioned the men to do this. And men, it's time we stand up and do our job and stop being derelict in our duties in our homes and in our churches. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoy this. I've enjoyed bringing it to you people. I'm sorry we got a little bit of a late start, but I had to get the mics working just fine. I've really enjoyed this. This has been a great time. Again, I want to share something with you. I'm starting to work with my YouTube channel again, get some videos up there. I got to put some more YouTube stuff up from my broadcasts I do here every Saturday night. I got all the sermons from Emmanuel Baptist going all the way back to the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, all the way forward. I got all the sermons up there. You can tune in and listen to them. Just find your favorite speaker and what year you want to listen to, and they'll have all the messages there. And then I'm dividing up different playlists for my podcast, for these broadcasts I'm doing. Like I got one on Matthew 24. It's got a 6-hour lesson on it on Matthew 24. What's going on with that? This one here with the origin of myth, I'm going to be getting into that. It's going to have its own little playlist. And there's going to be a bunch of other stuff that I think you definitely want to hear and listen to. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be really beneficial, really educational to you. Don't forget about church services at Emmanuel Baptist Church. If you want to come visit sometime, I'll post a link. That way you can find the church. We're going to have church tomorrow at 10 o'clock. That's when Sunday school starts, and 11 right at regular church service. About 11:30, a quarter till noon. I'm going to start recording the church services live. You definitely don't want to miss that. It's going to be good for that. Wednesday night we have 4:30 in late evening, afternoon, early evening. We're going to have church services. You definitely don't want to miss that. I record those about 5 o'clock every Wednesday night. It's going to be a really good time of study. It's going to be a great time. I'm preaching this Wednesday night, so come on, be a part of what we're doing. We love people. We love having people come in and be with us. We love people visit us, and we also love to take the time to share the gospel. We're good old-fashioned Baptists. You know, we love our 1611 King James Bible, and we love the hymns and the Southern gospel, and we just preach the word the way it needs to be preached, or a way that most churches don't do. So we'd love to have you come be a part of it. Like I said, I'll be recording the services. We also got the YouTube channel that I'm working on, as it was in the days of Noah and Lot, and also this channel. If you're tuning in, if you haven't liked it or followed it, please do. That way you'll get notifications for everything I do. I try to do about 2 videos every week on God's news. Some of you may or may not remember that ministry. It was started by Dr. Ray Brubaker in 1948, and several years later he stepped down, and his son-in-law, Dr. Joe Vancouver, took over. He was my pastor down in Florida. We try to play some of those older messages from the conferences through the years. We're now looking at 2003 messages, and we're going to get all the way up to about 10 years ago when they stopped doing the conferences. But I want to tell you something. It's a great time to be alive. It's really good to be to be here, seeing the world just wake up from its historical slumber. I'm glad to be here. This is a great time, because I really believe that we're going to be soon seeing Jesus Christ returning to this earth to come get his own. So y'all just remember that. And I will be back next week, or I'll see you here tomorrow. Tune in. It's going to be a great time of fellowship. And this is Brother Micheal Champion saying, I will see you here, there, or in the air. God bless y'all.